Believe it or not, Ellen is not the only agent being buffed in Zenless Zone Zero version 2.0. This is Ellen. Ellen is the 1.0 ice attack DPS agent. You know her, you love her. She's provably the most popular character in the game. This is Ellen. Ellen's been real bad, but she is a lot less bad in version 2.0. Let's go, baby! The buffs are real! They're here. They're back. Guess who's back? Back again. Let's freaking go! Yes, Ellen is getting buffed, and she's getting buffed in some big ways. They are adding new attacks. They're changing her core. They're changing her additional ability. They're changing her best teams. Let's go. We are back. But it's not just Ellen. Because of the addition of Rupture and the new stun set, essentially everyone is getting buffed, which is huge. It's genuinely huge. If you have not been following the news, Rupture is getting added in version 2.0. What is Rupture? Rupture is Yusun, but there might be other agents later. To assist with building a team for Yusun, they are making a change to the following agents' additional ability passive activation conditionals. They are Pulchra, Kaleda, Lucy, and Astra. If you're not familiar with what these agents' additional abilities are, they're kind of not very important. Except for Pulchra? Is Pulchra's even important? I don't even know. Pulchra's is important. They're kind of not very important besides Pulchra, but we're gonna go through them anyway. Kaleda's additional ability is her stacking chain attack damage buff that's applied by her EX. This chain attack buff only applies during stun and is reset when stun ends. It can stack twice. That is up to 70 chain damage bonus. Lucy's additional ability is she shares her crit rate and crit damage with Bang Boobs and her Boars. Yep, that's what it does. It's not a joke. That's what it does. Fun fact. I bet you didn't know it did that. And Astra. Astra's additional ability is her tremolo hits after her buff is applied to agents. So she does a little bit extra damage when this is active, essentially. She'll generate a little more decibels, she'll apply more anomaly. It is important. It also isn't exactly a lot of damage, but the other things make it at least important enough that you'd always want it active, which is nice. These things are meant to assist with drafting a team for Yusun. But why would that be relevant? Like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna try to do more Zenless content. More Genshin content is coming. Did you know most of you watching are not currently subscribed? You should subscribe. If you didn't notice, half of these agents are stun agents. Rupture agents essentially rebalance supports in team building. Because they benefit significantly less from attack buffs, and they cannot use Death Shred at all, Daze becomes a stronger buff than it has been previously. Hitting another Daze threshold is good enough to take a team slot, when it otherwise may not have been. This indirectly buffs agents who do Daze, such as Kaleda and Pulchra. The other way that they are buffing stun agents is this new set, King of the Summit. King of the Summit buffs every attack agent and every stun agent. King of the Summit has a 2-piece that increases the days of all attacks by 6%, and a 4-piece that is when the equipper is a stun agent. When the equipper is a stun agent and uses an EX special attack or a chain attack, it increases the crit damage of all squad members by 15%. When the equipper's crit rate is greater than or equal to 50%, you will receive an additional 15% crit damage, and this has a duration of 15 seconds. Repeated triggers will reset the duration, and the passive effect cannot stack. So this set makes all stun agents do more stun, and it makes them, or it gives them the ability to buff crit damage by 30% for 15 seconds. The closest comparison to this set in current gearing is Protopunk. Protopunk is the set people have been using on stun agents to help them buff teams. This is when any squad member does a defensive or evasive assist, you'll get 15 damage bonus for 10 seconds. King of the Summit is a stronger buff with a longer duration and with an easier conditional. Nice. This set is the best in slot on Trigger, Lighter, Lycon, Pulchra, Kaleda, Chingy, and Anbi. That is the entire roster of stun agents. If you can run this set in your team, you will. To assist with understanding how good this set is, I've written out some calcs. Let's start at Pulchra. So you can see putting Summit on Pulchra in a Yi Sen team is just straight up almost 10% by itself. One of the reasons this becomes significant is we can talk about who else you may play instead of Pulchra and how this comparison stacks up exactly. What do I mean when I say that? This is Caesar King. She's not a stun agent, so she cannot hold King of the Summit. It is theoretically possible that Caesar buffs Yi Sen less than Pulchra. This is because of Astral Voice uptime and because the Panda can hold Caesar's engine. So Pulchra is getting a massive dub in this comparison and in this example. Similarly, let's talk about Anbi. Anbi actually gets extra stat value from crit damage, so crit damage buff is great for her. The downside of this is you won't be able to use Trigger's EX special outside stun anymore. You'll be using Trigger's EX special inside stun to apply the buff. That is the downside. The upside is when that buff is active, you're doing about 10% more damage. There is a trade-off in that you are losing a fair bit of Trigger's days to do this, but we currently believe that it's a benefit and you should be playing that way. That is subject to change, and I'll be sure to update you if it's not. But yeah, even an agent like Trigger, who historically has really low EX special uptime, is gonna be able to benefit from the set because it's just kind of that good. This is Hugo. Hugo's teams currently can't use Astral Voice, so he's actually benefiting the most out of the entire cast of attack agents. So let's take Lighter Lycon. Current gearing is like Protopunk on one of them, and you can run Swing Jazz on the other. Yeah, it's a little odd, but this is about to get much more streamlined because now one of them will be using Protopunk and one of them will be using King of the Summit. Upgrades, baby. Yeah, that's just straight up an upgrade. Simple 1-2, boop, and bloop, stonks. So because Lighter's EX is 40 energy, I am inclined to say you should be using it on him instead of Lycon. And if you are going to use it on him, we can also talk about Evelyn. Just like everyone else, King of the Summit Lighter. Protopunk, scoot over. We can directly replace Protopunk with King of the Summit, and it should just be better. Stonks. Upgrades, people, upgrades. Stun agents won big. We can combine this with the Ellen buffs to get this kind of damage out of Ellen. So let's talk about the Ellen buffs. Ellen has a new attack, or Ellen has two new attacks, Glacial Blade Wave and Icy Blade. Glacial Blade Wave is entirely new, and Icy Blade is the attack from Hollow Zero. Icy Blade is the finisher that will activate after B3 and after EX2. It can be swap canceled very liberally. You can actually swap cancel during the B3 and she will automatically launch Icy Blade. Glacial Blade Wave is a new attack that replaces her first and second basic attack. So it consumes 2 Flash Freeze charges, and it happens after Quick Assist, Dodge Counter, Basic Attack 3, and after her Scissor Strike. When you press Basic Attack after these hits, she will do the new Glacial Blade Wave, which counts as doing B1, B2, essentially. This also shortcuts to B3, just like her EX special. So this is just an attack that's always worth using if you can use it. Nice. It's just better than B1 and B2. They also added a parry/block to her Scissor Strike, so you should be getting interrupted much less often. They've also tweaked Ellen's additional ability to be activated by faction, attribute, or stun. Do you see how things are coming together? They also made a change to Ellen's core passive, which is that it applies to both new attacks, her chain attack, and her ultimate attack. Yes, the 100% crit damage passive now applies to her chain attack and her ultimate, making these attacks significantly stronger than they were before. It's great. Because her chain attack is now much stronger, it's especially now worth using her chain attack in stun. Which brings us to teams. Ellen's new best team is a team you love. It's Lighter Astra. How original, I know, but bear with me. Hear me out. I get a cat meowing. Hear meow.
No.
Lighter's stun duration extension allows you to do these chain attacks while still doing all of the same attacks that you would do if you hadn't used the chain. Which is why I am comfortable saying Lighter should just be the best option over Trigger. Regarding drive discs, because we're looking at Astra Lighter, 10% on slot 5, 10% on your 2-piece. Your slot 4 can either be crit damage or attack percent, and your slot 6 will always be attack percent. Pull up the charts again. You can pretty directly see how good these buffs are. Ellen is getting buffed by about 50%. It's huge. This is not going to make Ellen the strongest agent in your roster, but it is going to make her much better. And it may even allow her to compete with some of the more recent agents. It's kind of massive. The fact that they are willing to buff an agent this significantly sets an amazing precedent, especially this early. We're not waiting until 3.0 to announce buffs and have them arrive 4 updates later. Yes, I'm throwing shade at Star Rail. What about it? These buffs were announced. They are here. They were announced on the 1.7 live stream. And then they're getting implemented in 2.0. Just in time for the anniversary and just in time for returning players. And it's awesome that they're showing that they're willing to do it. This opens the door to other agents who have fallen by the wayside, such as Bernice or Chingy, or even ZN, getting buffs in the future as well. We'll see if they do it, but the fact is, they're clearly willing to. I only have one question. Where is my freaking Evelyn set? Oh yeah, Caesar needs a buff too. I don't know if you noticed, but we had some comparisons in this video. Caesar needs a buff. It's true. Sorry.